Hey there, and welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to unpack a mystery that sits right at the very center of your life. We're going to take a really hard look at your personal ambitions, your goals, and, well, the things you wake up every single day striving to achieve. We usually assume our desires are entirely our own, right? Born from somewhere deep down inside us. But today, we're going to explore a fascinating theory that suggests something completely different. I want you to just sit with that question for a second. Think about the car you want to buy, that big career milestone you're chasing, or even the lifestyle you picture when you imagine being truly successful. We hold on to this fundamental assumption about our own free will. We genuinely believe we're the independent architects of our own wants. But what if that autonomy is actually just a massive illusion? And this takes us to an even deeper paradigm shift. Imagine for a moment that your deepest, most tightly held desires were actually just quietly borrowed from the people around you. You aren't desiring things naturally. You're just watching others and adopting their wants as your own. Okay, let's really get into it. This whole idea was famously introduced by the French academic and thinker René Girard back in 1961. It's an eerie concept, honestly. It's this almost blind nature of how we borrow our desires from one another. We don't see the object clearly, and we don't even see ourselves clearly. We just feel the intense pull of what another person is feeling, and we latch onto it. All right, section 1. What is mimetic desire? So Girard called this mimetic desire. To understand how this impacts our daily lives, let's quickly break down the mechanics. The core idea is incredibly straightforward, but man, is it profound. Think about how we learn literally everything else in life. We copy people constantly. We imitate how our parents speak, we copy how our peers dress, we mimic how society behaves and thinks. Girard argued that human desire works the exact same way. We don't just naturally crave objects in a vacuum, we actually learn what is worth wanting by observing what other people want. Now, this is where it gets super interesting. Think of this mechanism like a triangle. You are at one corner, the object of desire is at the top, but the absolute crucial piece is that third corner, the model or the rival. We don't have a direct straight line of desire to the object. Instead, our desire routes through that model. The model desires the object, and through a sort of mirror effect, they effectively create the value of that object for us. What this means is that when you're chasing something, you aren't actually chasing the physical item itself. You don't just want the luxury watch, the specific job title, or the beautiful house in the suburbs. You want the social weight attached to those things. You want the meaning, the attention, the status, and the feeling that society, and specifically your models, have assigned to that object. Moving on to section 2, from childhood to adulthood. To really grasp how deeply wired this is into our brains, we have to look at where it all starts, which is at a very young age. Picture a young kid sitting at a diner counter, perfectly mirroring the posture of the police officer sitting right next to him. Children are essentially imitation machines. They learn how to speak, act, and determine what has value entirely by copying adults and older peers. Girard points out that the mechanism of desire is installed right here, at the absolute very beginning of our development. And honestly, nothing illustrates this concept in action quite like a room full of toys. Imagine a child is playing and just completely ignores one specific building block on the floor. It's totally invisible to them. But the very second another child walks into the room and picks up that exact block, suddenly that discarded toy becomes the single most important object in the entire world. A huge tantrum ensues. They absolutely must have it. Think about that for a second. The toy itself didn't change at all. It didn't suddenly grow new features or magically become more fun. Only the desire changed. The second child's attention essentially created value out of thin air. This is pure mimetic desire right here. Imitation shaping want. Now, let's fast forward to adulthood. We really like to think we outgrow the toy room, right? But we don't. This dynamic just scales up. Think about scrolling through social media. You see someone traveling to a beautiful destination, and out of nowhere, you feel this deep urge to go there. You see a peer buy a certain car or land a specific career, and suddenly, boom, that becomes your new benchmark. The screen in your hand is basically just an endless feed of models showing you what to desire. When you really compare the two side by side, it's kind of mind-blowing. Building blocks on one side, complex lifestyles and careers on the other. The toys we play with have definitely become significantly more expensive and complicated, but the underlying psychological mechanism, it remains absolutely identical. We are all still just kids in a room wanting the block that someone else just picked up. And that brings us to a pretty hard-hitting realization. Sometimes we mistake borrowed desire for personal ambition. We walk around thinking, I chose this path, I made this highly independent choice. But more often than not, society quietly chose it for us, and we just adopted the script without ever even realizing it. Let's dive into Section 3, the loop and rivalry. So, what happens when our whole lives run on these borrowed desires? Well, it leads us to a highly exhausting place. The major problem with mimetic desire is that it creates a loop. If you've ever felt completely restless in modern life or felt like you're running a race with absolutely no finish line, this is exactly why. Achieving our goals rarely leaves us feeling fulfilled, simply because the goals weren't sourced from within us. You basically find yourself on an endless treadmill. You chase something, you finally get it, it feels amazing for a moment, but then the feeling fades, it goes away, and instantly something new replaces it. A new trend, a new goal, a new image. Round and round you go. Why does this keep happening? Because the desire was never really yours to begin with. It was externally generated, not internally understood. And because human imitation literally never stops, there will always be a new model, a new rival, and a new object to obsess over. The cycle just continues. And this, inevitably, leads to rivalry and comparison. Girard believed that when two people desire the exact same thing through imitation, they become rivals. Not because the objects in life are always rare or scarce, but because the desire itself is intensely competitive. We see this play out everywhere, in friendships, in toxic workplace environments, in romantic relationships, and, for sure, in politics. Ultimately, we don't truly want the object. We want to actually be the person who possesses it. We want to defeat the model. Finally, Section 4, reclaiming your desire. So how do we break the loop? Look, the honest truth is that imitation is fundamentally human. It's everywhere. We can't completely remove it from our lives, and honestly, we shouldn't necessarily try to. But awareness? Awareness is the key. Becoming consciously aware of this mimetic mechanism is the elixir. Once you see it, you literally can't unsee it. And that awareness gives you a superpower, the ability to pause before acting. It makes your choices just a little bit more free. Which brings us to our absolute most important takeaway. The next time you find yourself obsessively chasing a goal, or maybe feeling a bit envious of someone's success, I want you to pause and ask yourself this one profound question. Do I genuinely want this, or did I learn to want it from someone else? Asking that won't magically make all desire disappear, but it will wake you up. You don't simply want things, you often just want what others want. Let that sink in. Thank you so much for exploring this with me, and I really hope it helps you find a bit more freedom in your own ambitions today.